Hi, and welcome to Two Tired Teachers.
Coming at you from Fort Griffin State Historical Site.
And it's not really near anything.
It's sort of near the town of Albany, Texas.
But this is not actually under the state park system. So if you have a park pass, that does not waive your entrance fees. But we're going to give you a view of some of the campsites here. There are some with water and electric and some with full hookups. And there are some where the picnic table may be on the on the opposite side, and the hookups on the opposite side. So just be aware of that. There are a couple of drive-up sites where you come in and you're not actually pulling into the site, you're just parking next to it.
And we also want to point out that this historic site has two distinct parts. This is the camping part.
And then the actual historic site, or the grounds where all of the historic buildings are, there's a little, they call it a little highway that runs between. The campground is on the east side of that highway, and the historic area is on the west. And so as you're coming down that highway, if you're coming to this area, that'll give you a little bit of an idea of...
And it's fairly well marked.
Yeah. Oh, and there are some walk-in sites as well, I forgot, that just have water hookups.
Yes.
And there were people, when we got there was just us and I think one other or two other people camping there. And then before we left, there were people pretty well all over.
Yes.
And it is on this little creek or river, but it is a good little hike down.
Sort of steep steps.
And you're having to go through a campsite. Either one end or the other, you're going to have to go through someone's campsite to get there. So if you're really interested in going there, you might reserve one of those. And the trails, there are some trails that are similar to this. This is actually walking into the walk-in campsites. And so it's, like I said, there were some families that were back up in here before we left on Friday night, Saturday night, something like that. So it is a really pretty park if you like mesquite trees.
Yeah.
And it's pretty.
There is a longhorn herd here in the park on both sides, both the camping side and the historic side.
And on Saturdays, they do have a program here, and that's why these are all in this corral.
Yes.
We did not get back in time to go to that, but they have a lot of information. On the other side, it's free range for the longhorns. And so as you're driving up to the information building, just be aware that there may be
longhorns in the road, and as you can tell from some of these pictures, the longhorns had calved. There's some fairly young ones out there,
and there were some that were really close to the road.
Yes.
And some that were further back. So
that one's so darn cute.
It is cute. It is adorable. Okay, this campground, this parade ground area, or this is the historic area, the historic site area. And this gives you kind of a layout of the terrain that's there. And then this, like any other information area, museum area, was a lot of fun. This was a longhorn who had served his purpose elsewhere, and they made him into a bench, and there were several of these throughout.
Yes.
And I had a lot of fun. I don't know, Mylena didn't play that much, but I just had a lot of fun going around and looking at the stuff that there was to see. They had some really interesting videos explaining the importance. This is a fort, and throughout Texas there are a number of forts, and they were really important locations, and there's a lot of really interesting history associated with them. But here they had various things that kids or adults who like to, interact with.
Yes.
replicas
that people would carry.
Yeah, just the kinds of stuff that the people who lived in this area in the 1800s would have had. And so 1864 is
Yes.
what that one is. And so there are a number of buildings that have been constructed actually on the site where the original buildings were. And you can go in, this is just a sampling of one. You go in and they've done an awesome job
of recreating. Even you'll see when we get in the bakery, they have little lights to make it look like it's actually being used.
but like a list of the supplies, etc. And so it's a lot of fun, and it's history in 3D.
Yes.
And so that's kind of a neat thing. Now, one thing that we didn't get a lot of video of, and I think it was just because we're having so darn much fun, but we're going to go on and confess here. When you get ready to go out and actually see the historic buildings, they just give you keys to a little golf cart and tell you to have fun. Actually, they don't tell you to have fun. They just tell you that, here. And we are not golfers. We've never played golf. Our parents never played golf. We'd never played on a golf cart before.
We had more fun.
I told Mylena once we got to the first stop, I said, you got to take a turn. And I know. Well, after I came out of one of these buildings, she's sitting there in the driver's seat. And we got back to turn the keys in, and we're telling the people how much fun we'd had. And but this one needed to be charged. They handed us the keys to the other one and let us go again. We had a ball. Okay. This is on the part with the historic buildings, and there's an overlook you can drive up to, and this is looking over across the street at the campground. So this just kind of gives you an idea. And if you're not from Texas, yes, there are places where you can come and
see miles and miles of miles and miles.
Yeah, and it was a really pretty overlook, and it was a lot of fun driving the golf carts up there.
Yes, it was.
There is a road you can actually drive up to the overlook as well. And then there's one other area that has been sold. This is like where the people lived, and
Yes.
it's been sold to a family, but they allow people
Yes.
to still come
And they have Texas historic markers on it. I mean, it was actually part of the Fort Griffin area.
Well, we have some storm clouds that are
They've rolled in.
and so while we're not packing up and leaving quite yet, we did want to just kind of give our final impressions of Fort Griffin historical site.
And there's one thing we want to point out. Although the campsites themselves are only for water and electric $15, there is a $4 per person
For adult.
per day entrance fee, and it's not covered by the Texas State Park Pass. So it ran it up to $23 a night.
Which, compared to a hotel is nothing, but if you're used to getting that park pass discount, it is a little bit different. But we have had a great time here. It's really been interesting, and one of the things that really surprised me was seeing people from Washington State, California,
New Mexico.
And this was a place that we knew nothing about until just about 6 weeks ago, if
Yes.
that long. And so that was kind of interesting. We had to, because of some things we had business we needed to take care of, which is not right here because you really have to plan a trip to get here.
Yes.
But this was going to be a semi-convenient stop for us. We had to come in on Wednesday night, in which case there were, I think, 2 people in the full hookups and us. And Thursday night, I think there were about 6 of us here.
Yes.
And then last night, there may have been 3 empty sites. And so...
And it's not a huge park. I mean, that's not 3 out of 100. Or,
yeah, it was...
but it's...
I don't remember exactly how many there are. Now, the walk-in sites, there were some people there
Yes.
as well. So, anyway, it's an interesting place.
The other side, the historic site, it's wonderful. They have all sorts of replicas and some actual buildings, and then there's a little part on down on private property. Yes.
But the little museum area being so interactive.
It's very nice.
As you saw, I got to play with lots of stuff in there. And it's interesting. It kind of makes it a little bit more real.
Yes.
But we've had a lot of fun here. Once again, this is going to be a spot that you really got to kind of plan on coming here. But if you're a history buff,
or if you like to drive golf carts,
and it might be worth your time. And one thing I don't think we got a picture of, and I doubt we do, one of the markers down here, it wasn't where necessarily a historic marker was, but just of a civilian cemetery
right as you come
into the camping side, right before that house. And most of this stuff is from like 1870s, 1880s. And that little cemetery was just interesting to me. And I don't hope this doesn't sound disrespectful, but one day when we came or went, they just had the longhorns, some grazing there, putting that land to use because those plots are not marked, like they are with modern cemeteries. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. We've gotten to, one other thing.
Yes.
This morning, I had taken the dogs for we'd gone from here, we'd walked around the campsites and then walked back out to the road and come back. So, it's a couple miles. But as we're coming back, it was breaking day before we left, and we're coming back and we actually saw a skunk cross the road, and
it was daylight.
It was daylight. It had been light for a while. And so I was a little concerned about that, but he went on his way and we didn't get sprayed, so it all worked out. But that was one piece of wildlife that we hadn't seen up close and personal before, and I don't care to see again. But other than that, we've had a great time, and I hope you've enjoyed our look at Fort Griffin State Historic Area.
Yes.
Thanks for watching Two Tired Teachers.